A very good morning to Professor Dr. Gauss Jasmine, Vice Chancellor, University of Malaya, Professor Dr. Prof Da Hsuan, Senior Executive Vice President of the National Cheng University, Taiwan, University of Malaya Top Management, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the talk on building a world-class university and global university ranking by Professor Dr. Prof Da Hsuan from National Cheng University, Taiwan. Before we start, let me give you a bit introduction about our speakers for today. Professor Dr. Prof Da Hsuan. Born in 1945 in New Delhi, India, Professor Feng obtained his bachelor's and doctoral degree from the Drew Universities and University of Minnesota, respectively. Professor Feng currently the Senior Executive Vice President of Research Affairs of National Cheng University, Taiwan. He is also the Fellow of the American Physical Societies and Honorary Professors of 11 Chinese universities. His achievements including recruiting Nobel Prize winner and renowned scientists to deliver lectures and pursue research in NCKU. National Cheng Universities is one of the most prestigious universities in Taiwan, with high reputation in science, engineering, medicine, management, planning and design. NCKU was ranked on the 31 in Asia for the QS Asian University Ranking in the year 2010 and listed 283 for the QS World University Ranking in the year 2010. Ladies and gentlemen, let me invite Professor Dr. Prof Da Hsuan.
Can you all hear me? Good morning. This is a great honor for me to be here at the most prestigious university in Malaysia. And I'm particularly excited and honored to have this opportunity to discuss with you on a subject that has been my primary thoughts for the last decade and a half. As an educator, I always thought about the responsibility of higher education, in particular, education in general. And of course, nowadays, we are all inundated by the concept of global ranking. And I thought that today I would spend some time talking about the concept of the meaning of a world-class university and some of the implications of global rankings and how those rankings could assist us in thinking about the issue of building an educational institution that will educate young men and women to face the challenges of the 21st century. That is our challenge. I thought about this because we don't live in isolation. University cannot live in isolation from the society. I learned this as a physicist because as a physicist, quite often we simplify things in studying the problems. The simplest joke about a theoretical physicist is how we study chicken is by assuming first of a spherical chicken. And then we go on and look for perturbations of how to study chicken. That doesn't work. By the same token, a university is embedded in the society, is embedded in a nation, and with the so-called flat world, is embedded in the world. All this is coming at us at like a tidal wave. Once we thought about that, I cannot help. I was Chinese educated, so my English ability, at least some 20, 30 years ago, is limited, but I did remember reading one book, and that was by Charles Dickens, who lived between 1812 and 1870. And he wrote a famous book that you all, I'm sure, know far more than I do. It's called Tale of Two Cities, and which began by, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, and so on. And I think we're living in exactly such a period today. So I want you to keep this in mind. I'll come back to it at the end. Actually, thinking about my own life, it's sort of a personification of what Dickens said. This is a picture of my family and I on that right-hand corner, the left-hand corner. I'll let you guess which one is me. This is in front of the Sun Yat-sen Mausoleum in Nanjing. Now, I know that you're not interested in my family, of course. I am interested in my family. But the point is not about my family. It's more about the point is about that gate behind me. The other picture is the same gate today, or in the last year. And you notice that the gate hasn't changed one bit. What has changed is that the little tree behind it has grown. And imagine that little tree, and if you ask the little tree, what have you seen in the last many decades? He or she would tell you, I don't know whether a tree can be a she or not. He or she would tell you, but I have to be politically correct. He or she would tell you that she saw the major transformation of the country China. It went through this KMT and communist confrontation. It went through the Cultural Revolution. It went through the change of today, all squeezed into 60 years. And that's a remarkable history. And I'll come back to that also later on. So here's my life. My first citizen, not quite a citizen because it's a British subject, and the passport states that bearer has no right to abode in the British Isles. I always say that, I hope there are no British people here, that when a British BS, they BS with elegance. And my second citizen was during the time when Malaysia and Singapore was together. So I was a Malaysian for a while. And my third citizen was Singapore. My fourth citizen, United States. So I thought maybe I should go after the Guinness World of Records. And I've been a professor of physics. I've been the director of theoretical physics at the U.S. National Science Foundation. I was a VP for Fortune 500 company, Science Applications International Corporation. I was a vice president for research at University of Texas at Dallas. And now I'm Cheng. So I'm, as my wife would always say, why can't you hold on to a job? But look at KL. From this to this. KL, that picture was during the insurgency, and the other picture is today. In less than half a century. In the human history time, 50 years is nothing more than a second. And yet it can make such tremendous change. So what are the guiding principles behind all this? Well, first of all, to me at least, the guiding principle must be history. Pearl S. Buck always said, if you want to understand today, you have to search yesterday. In fact, if you want to understand tomorrow, you have to understand yesterday. Secondly, as a physicist, I was taught to always ask upstream questions, not downstream. Upstream so that you solve bigger problems, so that you look for solutions at its source and not worry about little details down the stream. They will take care of itself. Now, I have to admit, I'm an outsider here, so let me say something about the University of Malaya, but I'm sure some of that will sound very naive to you, but I hope some of that would be of generic nature. My good friend, the late Alan McDermott, actually I'm very proud of him because A, he was my neighbor in Philadelphia, and secondly, when I went to the University of Texas, I recruited him to University of Texas. He went kicking and screaming, but he went, and amazingly, once he went, our ranking in one of the rankings, I don't remember which one, I think it's Shanghai Jiao Tong, went from 500, beyond 500, which means I never showed up, to suddenly jump into 300. So it does make a difference. But he says something very important. He says science is people. People. It's not buildings. And this is something we must bear in mind in building great universities. Now, I want to tell you something that happened quite recently in Nature, this famous journal called Nature. It says that celebrating these treasures of topological twists, this gibberish thing called the topological twist. But the important thing is that such a story of the skyrmion, a concept that has had several makeovers since it was first formulated in the late 50s by the British physicist, a very, very well-known, famous, almost winning the Nobel Prize if he didn't die so early, Tony Skyrm. Well, why am I telling you this? Well, that's because between 1961 and 64, he was right here. He spent 4 years as a senior lecturer at the University of Malaya. And then when he left here, he went to take on a chair in mathematical physics at Birmingham to succeed Sir Rudolph Pauwels, which was one of the great 20th century physicists. So you know what kind of a person Tony Skyrm was. Now, one great man does not great university make. But, ladies and gentlemen, one great man who walked these grounds indicates that the University of Malaya has the necessary history and potential for greatness. And the time to reach it, I believe, is today. I should also make it clear that while there are many universities in Malaysia today, probably not all could or should assume the flagship status. University of Malaya, with its rich history, as I just pointed out, its broad scope, as I've seen from your very, very exciting brochures, and its society's perception, and we all know perception is reality, is certainly one of them. As such, University of Malaya must have the added responsibility, beyond educating enlightened and forward-looking leaders in all arenas, but to be one, if not the, Malaysia's intellectual and economic engines. This is your job here. And you cannot say that I don't want to be that. Because if you don't want to be that, someone else will. So in my opinion, a humble opinion, this is the meaning of building University of Malaya as a world-class university. No more, no less. It is as simple as that, but it is also as hard as that. It's not going to be easy. Now, in higher education, we face at least, and there are more, I'm sure, and you think about it, I'm sure you'll find them, 4 profound challenges. Some of you may be aware that in mainland China, there are these so-called 211 projects and the 985 projects. In Taiwan, we have the 5-year, 50 billion project. And I assume that there must be something similar nature in Malaysia. All that put together, if you think about what are they asking you to do, is to how to improve top universities in the country for them to become top 100 globally. In Chinese, it's called 百大, 110, the top 100. However, the 4 challenges that I can think of. First, education integrity. Second, academic agility. Third, intellectual courage. And 4, cultural relevance and importance. And I like to talk about these issues. Now, let's think about the global rankings before we do that. First, let's have a check of reality. My thesis advisor, many, many years ago, has a very nice plaque right outside his office who says that, unfortunately, the world is real. First of all, having enormous impatience, and you can all imagine how impatient we are. Asian universities want to be recognized by their peers globally. Your university and my university are no exception. We are impatient. Second, well, if we're impatient and in an impoverished country, it doesn't matter. But we're not in an impoverished country. We're in a robust economic development area in the last several decades. And with higher education, or with education high on society's agenda, developing outstanding research university ranks high on national priority and pride. And third, building great universities is a relatively new venture for Asia Pacific. 30 years ago, no one would give a damn about us. There is urgent and understandable need to have some kind of numerical indices for high-level decision makers to make decisions to dispense large amount of money. They say that, well, we have no experience in building great universities, so tell me how great you are so I can give you money. Or give me a number so I don't have to give this school money, or I can give this school money. So ranking become one of the most natural ways to take into considerations of funds distribution. Give you some ranking pros and cons. Nothing is perfect in life. Pros. It is a number people can hold on to and make judgments. Right or wrong, that's what they do. Cons. There's a proliferation of rankings. Which one or which group should one consider or one believe? As a scientist, I'm sure there are many of these here, scientists in the most general way, not just physical scientists, not just medical scientists, any scientist, there is a principle of measurement. What is a measurement? A measurement is I tell you a number depicting certain behavior, a point depicting the measurement. B, the width of the measurement is the estimation of the error incurred. By the way, that diagram, it doesn't matter what it is, but it did win Sam Ting his Nobel Prize in Physics. That line is telling him that there is a special particle he measured, that width is the error that's incurred. If the width is huge, no one would believe him. But it is such a narrow one, there's a lot of information in that. But that means you have to give people some judgment of error. The problem of any given ranking system is the following. When a university A is ranked 50, then somehow it's by definition better than university B, which is ranked 51, and which is not as good as the university which is ranked 49. No error bar is ever given. And yet, even as very, very smart scientists and educators and so on, we somehow accepted the fact that we don't need this error bar. Whatever's given to us, we believe it. So therefore, we ask the fundamental question, how do we look at the rankings in terms of the stability versus instability of rankings? I'll give you an example here, which we have done recently. I have a much more extensive PowerPoint, but I obviously don't have time to go over this. I've asked people to get everyone a copy of this. And if you're interested in it, just email me. If you don't get it, I'll email it to you. Take the top 10 universities in the world. Here are the list, more or less the top 10. Oxford, Chicago, Columbia, Princeton, Caltech, and so on and so forth. And we took 4 rankings, the Shanghai Jiao Tong, the QS, the Times Higher Education, and the one that's used by Taiwan. You looked at, they're bunched together, highly bunched together, which means that the spread is very, very small.